All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our breakout session at the Tourism Industry Conference. And thank you for joining us at this session on Rethinking Destination Marketing. So a quick overview of what the session will cover. I'll do a short introduction on the Marketing Innovation Program, which Lionel talked about in his speech earlier this morning. And then we'll move on to a very exciting fireside chat around the theme of rethinking destination marketing. And then at the end of it, we'll open it up for some Q&A. So the Marketing Innovation Program. Why we developed the Marketing Innovation Program, to set a little bit of context of this. Last year at the Tourism Industry Conference, we introduced our Marketing Strategy 2020, which has 3 key thrusts: telling a great Singapore story, targeting the right fans, and enhancing our delivery. And this Marketing Innovation Program is really an initiative to try and bring that to life and to move us towards our vision of agile, bold, and creative destination marketing. So for some of you who maybe did not attend TIC last year, we'll do a short video to introduce the Marketing Strategy 2020. So with that as the context, why marketing innovation? I think as we're all aware, there's an intensifying competition for our tourism dollar, and also coupled with a fast-changing and very cluttered marketing environment. So there's really a greater need for us to do more innovative marketing to be able to cut through the noise and reach out more effectively to our target audience. So that's what we hope the role of our Marketing Innovation Program can do. One, first and foremost, to inspire a culture of innovation and experimentation in marketing amongst our industry. And then through this program, we hope to crowdsource best-in-class marketing ideas from the industry and put in funds to help amplify these ideas so that we can augment STB's destination marketing efforts. So essentially, we want your help to help us tell a great Singapore story. We want to be at the forefront of marketing trends, and we want to inspire, disrupt, and set new benchmarks for destination marketing. So anyone can tell the destination story, so that's why we also want to leverage our industry's efforts in this. So this is what most people are probably interested in. So we've set aside $1 million in total of funds for this year, and the award will essentially go out to our Marketing Innovation Program recipients, where each recipient may receive up to $300,000 in dollar-for-dollar matching for distribution costs to help amplify and increase the reach of your marketing campaigns. And who are we reaching out to? So this program is actually open to all Singapore-based businesses and organizations with an innovative campaign and a great story to tell about the destination. So we want to open this to all stakeholders, so not just travel stakeholders, but also non-travel related stakeholders, because the destination story really doesn't have to be told only by tourism stakeholders, and we want to invite everybody to help us in these efforts. So what are we looking for? We're looking for innovative marketing campaigns that enhance the destination storytelling and also demonstrate the potential to drive tourism outcomes. So these could range from raising the awareness of our destination, all the way to encouraging people to visit Singapore or to drive spend on ground. In terms of the types of campaigns, this can include application of new technology solutions or adaptation of existing solutions in a creative way, but innovation does not have to be high-tech. It can also be about an impactful and innovative use of distribution channels or clever use of data and consumer insights that you might have on your business to develop your campaign message and content. So we encourage everybody to think out of the box. Your campaign can be executed overseas or locally. In terms of our evaluation, there will be 2 rounds. We'll do a short listing as well as a second stage where proposals will be evaluated by a judging panel. For the short listing, campaign ideas must fulfill the following criteria to be shortlisted. So there are 3 key points. 1, the campaign must be relevant to helping us tell a destination story for Singapore. 2, the campaign should reach out to a clear target audience, which is aligned with our priority markets and segments that we introduced. And 3, the applicant should demonstrate competencies required to be able to execute the campaign. Then shortlisted applicants will then move on to the judging round, and it will be evaluated by a panel of judges comprising members of STB as well as the industry. And they'll be evaluated in 3 key areas. 1, the innovativeness of the marketing campaign. After all, this is the Marketing Innovation Program. So we're looking for bold, differentiated, and imaginative marketing campaigns. 2, the potential impact of the campaign on destination marketing. So this is what we talked about. Your campaign, whether it's able to generate strong destination awareness and recall, enhance the appeal of our destinations to get people to visit. And 3, feasibility of the campaign that you propose. So this, we're looking at things like whether there is a sufficient scale of the marketing activities you're proposing, as well as the budgets you may put to it. So for more information, you can actually visit our website, stb.gov.sg. There will be a tab there on Marketing Innovation Program where you can find out more information on how to submit, what's the deadline. And then for inquiries, you can also drop us a note at STB Marketing Innovation. So applications will be open for a period of 3 months, so starting today, and then the closing date will be on 14 July. So that's the short introduction on the Marketing Innovation Program. And now we'll move on to the next segment, which is a panel discussion on rethinking destination marketing.
Before we start thinking about destination marketing, right? Before we even start rethinking, I wanted to ask them, actually, so what's your connection with Singapore? I mean, like, what's Singapore about? What is so special about Singapore to you, right? So, and I thought the answers were really very interesting. I wanted to share that with you. So the first answer is actually from Sunita, but before you speak, I'd like to invite everybody to stand.
Okay.
Okay, this is not an after-lunch exercise program. No, it's not a turn to your left and right, say hello to your neighbor program. Yeah, it's not that.
Turn to the left, massage.
But if you want to exercise, it's great. Yeah. Okay, so can I get you to relax? Take a deep breath. Okay, I'm not about to meditate, go into a meditation or something as well. So can I dim the light a little bit for you so that you can relax? Yeah. I just need you to listen and then let your mind flow and then see what comes into your mind's eye. That sounds like a meditation session, right? But relax, okay? Can I have the... It's not a National Day preview, it's not.
Oh, I love the song.
If you feel like swaying, it's fine. How many people remember this? It's okay, you don't need to tell your age.
Singapore cowboy.
Sing along if you want. Who was dedicating this to your first love? Okay, maybe this Okay. Take a seat. Relax. Yep. Okay, shall we have the light and... Okay, so Sunita, tell us, what's this about?
Sorry. I'm sorry, I think you need to push the screen up a little bit. Yeah. So this is my connection to Singapore. So I'm Singaporean, and when Jack asked me the question of, what would be my connection to Singapore, it would be this: growing up on Holland Road with my family. This is my dad and his fabulous moustache from 1975. He was the original Singapore cowboy. And I grew up in a household of music, and I think that's why working for Spotify is pretty appropriate. So music, and it was my parents that really pushed me to move into tech and always be learning. But when I think about the story of Singapore and my connection, music is definitely an anchor, which is why we thought we would stitch together a little medley of Singapore from the songs that we grew up on in school, which is Stand Up for Singapore and Count on Me Singapore. And what was interesting was when we were doing this yesterday, there was a 22-year age gap between myself and my colleague, and we both could sing the song. Yeah, Stand Up for Singapore, because it's still taught in schools, apparently. And then, of course, we've got, Matthew and the Mandarins and Tokyo Square, which was probably Singapore's biggest export until we found the Sam Willows. And that's a big part of my world, right? Exporting music from Singapore to the rest of the world. And we're actually really, really proud to say that Sam Willows is now trending on the global top 50. So they're starting to trend very heavily in Europe and the US. And it's just, spending so many decades here and just seeing those old memories and the whole evolution of where Singapore has come to is incredibly exciting.
I totally feel that. And I share a lot of Sunita's thoughts as a fellow Singaporean. So these are my inspirations, and this is what Singapore means to me. That's me with two friends, family friends from Toronto at Haw Par Villa. So that's me playing tour guide. That terrified the living daylights out of me. Proof that we have frightening things in Singapore that are right up there with the best of the world. So let's take pride in what we've got. That's also me in a playground near our HDB flat. I still hang out at the Heartlands. That's a picture of a hawker making what I think is Singapore's best porridge. And then I've taken a picture of Samis. So I'm Indian Chinese. I feel so connected to Singapore. I say I'm Singaporean first. It doesn't matter what race I am. Speaking of India, I've got a picture of the crab guy at Little India. That's my happiness tikka market on a Saturday morning. Love it. Food is so important to me. My first job was working for the Tonglok Group in PR. And that, it's still something I'm very passionate about, thinking about heritage food. That's my attempt at sioba, or roast pork. Onde onde, which I've learned to make from scratch. And then fusion food, because that's what Singapore is about. Hebi hiam, which is kind of fried, dried shrimp and pasta. That's the thing below. I travel a lot for work nowadays. I work for a global organization that represents brands or advertisers. Thankfully on Singapore Airlines a lot, and Sunita and I were talking about this. I love our national carrier. Just getting on the plane when you're about to come home, I have to control myself from embracing the crew.
So we have Benjamin here from Singapore Airlines, smiling widely.
I love, it's like I want to just fall on the floor of the plane and say I'm home. It doesn't matter if it's 2 hours or 18 hours, just being on the plane means I'm going home. I love it. Everywhere I go, because I'm a foodie, and you cannot be Singaporean without being a foodie. I try to bring food home. That's a picture of the goose I brought on my carry-on luggage from Yat Lok in Hong Kong.
Are you supposed to do that? I mean, like Benjamin is sitting here.
It's a bit too late for that now. I'm so sorry, Benjamin. I'll take another airline if I bring in goose. But no matter where I go, Singapore is home and the best place in the world for me, and that's a picture of the Padang. I love it. I'm such a patriot. It's ridiculous.
And what about Rupen? You're a foreigner
I'm a
amongst
foreigner,
us?
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I arrived here 10 years ago with my girlfriend then. Lived in sin, as my father would call it.
Literally.
For a couple of years. But the last 10 years has seen our family grow from two single people to being married in Singapore. We've then had a dog, which is a Singaporean special. Okay. It was funny. Everyone would ask me, what breed? And I go, Singaporean special. She's local, right? And we've had both our girls here. So now we're a family of 2 girls, a dog, 11 fish, and the 2 of us, all of us, calling Singapore our home. and love SQ. Yeah.
And Chris, okay, so for Chris' answer, I think you have to sit back and relax as well.
Right, okay. So, like Rupen, I've been in Singapore for coming up for 10 years. It'll be our 10th anniversary in September. But before I came to Singapore, I must confess, the only image I had in my mind of Singapore was this television show from the BBC in the early 80s. And I remember watching it with my parents. It was a massive show in terms of its audience share in the UK. It was exported to the US, Canada, and Australia. And it's set in Singapore in 1941, just prior to the Japanese invasion. Now, it's actually a very contemporary idea, in a way, because it's all about what happens to women in extraordinarily difficult circumstances, i.e., they are put into a Japanese prisoner of war camp. But it's a brilliant drama, and when I knew I was coming to Singapore, what was in my mind was this TV show, this image. Not the prisoner of war thing, obviously.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Not yet. But I had these images in my mind. And I've.
Do you want to share that image?
I'm
again?
gonna play you a short clip from this, and I think you'll recognise, hopefully, the location. So this is Singapore. I think we're having a few problems with the sound. 1941, two ladies going for coffee.
Did anybody
Raffles.
recognize the... You're supposed to guess the place.
Oh, sorry. Well, it did say Raffles Hotel at the beginning. I spent ages curating this clip. I did buy a pith helmet before I moved to Singapore because I thought it would be the necessary, accessory, but no. So that
that's
was
your connection.
that was
That's your first impression.
That was the image I had, and when I landed here, I could still see bits of it. I'm a history graduate, so I'm really interested in the history of anything, really. So, if you're a cultural collector or you're in that culture segment that we're interested in, then there's a lot to discover in Singapore about its very rich history.
That's really interesting. Okay, this is where I wanted to start our conversation because I really think that, like just now, that small little exercise for all of you. I'm sure you have memories, images, as you listen to those songs, what the music evoke in your mind, right? So the storytelling of Singapore can be done really by anybody, everybody in this room. So with that, I think I wanted to know, with that story in your mind, how do you see the world today? Ranjit.
So I'll jump right in. The world today is disconnected and noisy. You're looking at statistics that we reference in one of our initiatives called Project Reconnect. It's all about getting brands to reconnect with purpose and in a really meaningful way. What it says is, and I'll read that for those of you who might not be able to see, it says 74%, people wouldn't care if 74% of the brands they use disappeared. It says 75% of us expect brands to make more of a contribution to our well-being, but only 40% believe brands are doing so. And 60% of content produced by brands is declared as poor, irrelevant, or failing to deliver. You'll find more details in the Havas Meaningful Brand Study, but this is just an indication of where we are. I know it's my distinguished panelists will cover some of this, as you guys talk, but this is the reality of where we are today, I think, as marketers.
Rupen, your word today.
Yeah, so I think most of us would agree that the world's going a bit cuckoo, right? And if some of us didn't watch the United clip, it's just another recognition of the lack of any sorts of leadership from the world we used to call developed world. Okay, so at Element we track trust globally on 4 different organizations. Okay, how much trust do you place on the government, on NGOs, on business, and on media? And in the 2017 findings, it has never been lower anywhere in the last 15 years we've been tracking trust. And what happens is, when people stop trusting the 4 large pillars of society, okay, it leads to far more fear. Okay, and the opportunity for each of you as a brand owner, okay, and if we could move to the next slide, please, okay, is the rise of populism. So I think more and more consumers are now looking to brands to be into the area of activism, into the area of leading thought, and are extremely disillusioned, whether it is with the government, whether it is with the NGOs, whether it is with media. Okay? So I think one of the biggest things we're noticing for all brands around the world, as well as in Singapore, is the opportunity for brands to take a much larger thought leadership in becoming the voice of the populi. The second big thing that we've noticed, okay, is, and there are statistics that prove this, and Ranji referenced to 70% of the people wouldn't care if the brands of today disappeared. Okay, a guy in the UK, Dave Trott, talks about it. He says 84% of all media money that you spend isn't remembered. 7% of the money you spend is about brands people don't like, and consumers only remember 7% of the money that you are actually spending.
I
And if you
think
look at,
that's very bleak, right? I mean, like are the agencies
No,
people in
yeah.
the room want to say something
No, no.
about that?
but on the optimistic side, what consumers actually remember, so I have this saying which says advertising isn't dead. It's just being ignored. But what is being remembered now is the PR being advertised. So a truck driver who has a new steering wheel gets Jean-Claude Van Damme to suddenly do a split, and there are 95 million views and 30% increase in sales. Whether it is the Red Bull Stratos, whether it is Avion and the Live Young, and a whole host of examples. So as you think about the marketing innovation program, the reliance on advertising, if you want to be within the 7% and be optimistic, is great, but there might be different ways to actually look at how you communicate with the consumers. So that's the two things I wanted to share. Yeah.
So that means we are not looking for just any campaign in the marketing innovation program. So Sunita, oh, sorry, I'm holding the mic.
Yeah, so who's responsible for all of these trends? It's the millennials. But we'll talk about them in just a second, because a lot of what has been driven, a lot of these changes, is because they adapt a lot quicker than the baby boomers, which is where I come from. But just before we dive into that, as we think about how landscapes are changing, not even at Spotify, but a lot of brands use these two points. Firstly, that 50%. Now, I remember about 10 years ago us going, oh my God, 50% of the world is on the internet. And we have to do something. We've got to learn about this internet thing. And now what we're seeing is 50% of the internet is streaming. They're streaming something, video, music, little clips of information. They're not watching, huge documentaries. They're just picking up little points along the way. So what does that mean for brands like all of us, including us, is we need to make our marketing very snappy. There's a lot of conversations about the 7-second video. And the reason for that 7-second video is because we apparently, as a human race, now have a lesser attention span than a goldfish. So there's this whole move into content marketing, which, to Rupen's point, is really important for us to get our minds around, or we're really going to get left behind. And then as we think about millennials, now what's interesting about millennials is the definition. They go back as far as 1980. So a lot of millennials, the actual definition of millennials, a lot of them are now parents and families and all of that. And I think we forget, we still think if you're a 24-year-old, you're a millennial. But they're growing up, and this whole new generation are taking that behavior a step further. So if we move to the next slide, because this is where it gets interesting. Access versus ownership. Now, at the start, you would think oh dear, what on earth does that mean? But that is essentially borrowing versus buying. And when you think about the new sharing economy, Uber does not own any cars, Airbnb do not own any apartments, Facebook does not own any content, Spotify does not own any music. This is going to grow as we share. And we, were talking about the travel industry and what that would mean, and came up with all sorts of ideas, one which I think Chris had a really good idea, or had a really good experience around.
Which one's that?
No, but I wanted to first ask you about this millennial thing. I mean, they're like dominating the world, right? Like, do we really have to follow that trend? Chris, I mean, you just show us a monochrome clip. What's your view?
Sorry. Going to slightly build on / challenge the point there. I think a lot of us in this room, I'm not sure how many of us in this room fit into that age-defined millennial bracket. I know that I don't. But what I would say is it's quite easy often to be a bit lazy in your thinking, right? And to kind of take things for granted and to be very conventional and not really know you're being conventional. And I think that's really important. I think that's something the judges of this marketing innovation panel are going to be very sensitive about and tuned into. And Publicis Media, Zenith, where I work, is part of Publicis Media, the big communications group. And one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to understand the expectation gap between consumers, guests, travelers, customers, and what the C-suite, which a lot of you guys are, what does the C-suite think they're doing around innovation? Okay, so we've just published a global piece of research, and this is a little extract from it. If anybody, I haven't sort of debriefed or shared this before, but if anybody's interested in getting a copy of this research, I'd be very happy to share that with you, no problems there. And what we discovered is that this, and I wanted to say that the millennial is dead. That's what I wanted to say, right? And then I was corrected by someone who said, that's a little bit negative, that's a bit bleak. Think about it in a different way. Everyone is a millennial. My mum is a millennial. And what we mean by that is that the expectations and behaviors of people who are 35 plus are almost the same as the young people in terms of their behaviors. And that has significant implications for how we all go about our business in terms of how we tell the story, what's the service experience when people land in Singapore. So just to think that it's just young people that want to access stuff in their own way with, those kinds of expectations and behaviors are being adopted. If you could just go to the next point. And the second thing we discovered is that the kind of so-called non-millennial, the slightly older people, what they think is that they're very happy with this rate of change. And they want to see more of it. They're very excited about what innovation can bring in their lives in terms of utility and in entertainment and making lives easier. And there's only a very small percentage, you'll see at the bottom of the slide there, that have a kind of nostalgia for an older, slower, more genteel Raffles Hotel type existence. But what most people on the planet, irrespective of whether they're developing or developed countries, their expectations are much higher.
So millennial is like a lifestyle, an approach to this.
Mindset.
It's not an age group. Okay, we just expanded that whole definition. So with that, okay, with your brand or Singapore story, how Singapore connects to you, with your view of the world today, so what inspires all of you, right? What do you think it takes to surprise and delight, which is very used today now? Okay. So who wants to give it a shot? Rupen?
I'll go for it. So, and I'm going to play you an example from something completely unrelated, which is how do you get children to check their eyesight? Okay, because if you break down destination marketing, okay, 10, 15 years ago, my parents would walk into a tour guide who would try and allow them a visual thing of what they're going to experience if they sign on to this destination or X destination and Y. Okay? And therefore they created a picture in the mind that they bought into. And then eventually they would come back with Kodak film, which would be their version of what they would create and carry with them in their heart 10, 15, 20 years later. Okay? The big change that has happened has been technology. Okay? And to be able to talk about that and allow all of us to talk about that, I'm going to play you something which is from a completely different world in terms of marketing innovation on how do you get kids to check their eyesight. Could we play the video, please? So, if you just look at this, there are a few things that haven't changed and will not change for the next 50 years. Children don't like going to a dentist, going to an optometrist, and so on and so forth. What they like is reading books. Okay? And we can apply similar analogous thinking to destination marketing. What has changed is how we use technology in a fashion that solves genuine problems without becoming the idea itself. And I think even when we look at destination marketing, a few things haven't changed, will not change. Technology is a huge enabler to the way I buy into a destination before I travel and the way I collect and build memories. And then the ability of all of us to hand it over to the people, given the importance of populism and activism, may be some of the ways we could look at destination marketing as we progress further. Yeah.
So technology is a means to an end. I think we shouldn't forget that.
Has to be. If we think it is far more sexier than that, then we're probably kidding ourselves. Yeah.
True. Chris, you have a very serious topic about what inspired you.
Yeah. So I thought the time that could we go to the next slide, please? I thought the time that we had left together this afternoon, I could just spend sharing my holiday photos with you. So I've got about 340 slides here to show you of myself and.
We tried to control him, but
yeah.
couldn't get it down.
Good luck. Right. So this is actually a serious point, and I think relates to perhaps another side of innovation, which is really around pricing models. It sounds a bit drab, I know, but I think it's a really interesting area for our sector to explore. So the reason why this is me and my better half skiing is because if you've ever gone skiing...
I have.
You have?
Right here.
Well, I was going to say to you before we got on stage, break a leg, but then you've done something already. So if you've ever been skiing or you've thought about going skiing, you probably know it's a really expensive holiday to have, irrespective of where you go in the world. And one of the reasons, right, is because the cost of being on the slopes is high, like the equipment hire, but also the ski passes. And what a couple of resorts have started to do is to change the pricing model, which I think is really interesting. Because what they're saying is you don't have to buy a daily or a weekly ski pass. You can buy a pass and we will charge you per minute that you are on the slope, so that you only use what you only pay what you use. And I wonder, there are quite a few instances in other industries. So if you take motor insurance, if anybody's ever worked in the insurance category, you know that telemetrics are being used to give people personalized premiums to pay based on where their car lives, how they drive it, you know, where it's parked, etc. And I wonder, and it would be interesting with our MIP entries to see how people are tackling how technology and data enables new types of pricing strategies and new types of business models. And I think that would be something that I would encourage people to really think about.
That's
so the next photo is my wife and I having
photo.
a hot stone massage. So anyway, wanted to talk a little bit.
Oh, you have something lighter.
Yeah, something lighter. Sorry. So wanted to talk a little bit about what about Singapore and telling the Singapore story, which if you would have noticed, hopefully, in the video that explained and illustrated the STB marketing strategy, that one of the key strategic thrusts is telling a great Singapore story.
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is my wife's business, actually, sort of shameless promotion here. It's called Singapore Trading Post. But the reason, and if you turn up with your delegate pass, I'll make sure you get 10% off. But this is...
I have to charge you for the platform.
Yeah. Well, I'm the media agency, so I decide on the pricing of that.
All right.
So what I think is really interesting is that there are lots of creative possibilities that are homegrown Singaporean creative possibilities in music, yes, but also in design and in product design and in illustration, what used to be called the kind of, the visual arts. And something that my wife's business has done, which started, it's still a very modest business, is been reaching out to local designers in Singapore and commissioning their work and their thinking and exporting that around the world, whether it's a tea towel or a mug or whatever it is. And what's interesting about that experience is there are so many talented designers and creatives here that need a wider platform outside of Singapore.
Yeah, for sure.
Ranji was...
I was just going to say, I don't know if we have that slide ready, but in terms of what inspires me, and I was looking through Facebook yesterday. Well, it's totally unrelated. So a couple of things. This is totally unrelated to tourism, but I really liked it. Has anyone seen this video? So it's called Trap Kitchen. In a nutshell, there are two former gangsters behind it. One of them decided, this is from Compton, so it's South Central LA. One of them decided he was going to go to Le Cordon Bleu, right, and put his passions for food into something good. He started cooking from home. He started putting pictures of everything he cooked on Instagram. And people said, hey, why don't you sell the stuff? So every day he puts a picture of what he's going to sell. So he uses technology in a very simple way. People send their orders in. And instead of drive-by shootings, they drive by to pick up the food curbside. So it's a great story. And to me, it highlights three things that are really important to me. Food, technology, in a very simple tech for dummies kind of way, because that's the way I like to use it, and people, and I think that's really important. In terms of what else inspires me, we should have one more slide, I think. Has anyone seen this? And do you know what it is? HDB, all the Singaporeans say HDB facades. These pictures were taken by a really talented Singaporean photographer called Darren So. He's taken it upon himself to just go out there and document all aspects of Singapore life. And he's come up with these facades. And every now and then, it'll come up with his Facebook feed. And every time I see that, I say, hey, when are you going to make this into a scarf? When is it going to be a clutch? When is it going to be a tote bag? Because, and I'm so...
Or a tea towel.
Or a tea...
Or a mug.
Or a tea towel, or a mug, or a clutch, or a scarf. And I say that because I'm looking for lovely things that I can champion from Singapore, and also great souvenirs, because I don't want to give another box of Malayan chocolates. No disrespect, but how about something elegant? I think I approach it having worked for Audi before, and I think we have to have a whole range of souvenirs. Why can't we take it up a notch? Why don't we elevate what we have, and make it a premium gift?
Actually, if we look around us, right, there's so many ingredients we can use. And then you have some examples of some...
Yes, I don't know. Do we have one more slide? We might have. If we click on there. Okay. So what inspires me and what do I think tourism should be? I think tourism, and I have my tourism hat on because this is the tourism conference.
Got to the tourism hat.
I think tourism should be creative. It should be tailored. I know, Sunita, you've got a great point about personalization later on. And you should be able to tapao. I say this is Singapore, and you should have takeaways. Creative in terms of pre-promotion, to Rupen's point. That first slide, top left, is a still from a documentary called Tsukiji Wonderland, like Boogie Wonderland, but Tsukiji Wonderland, famous sushi market in Tokyo. What I put below is a snapshot of Akun, as in Yakun Kaya Toast. And I think, why couldn't we do a documentary on the founder of Yakun? Or how that came about. You've got documentaries on Guinness. I challenge the point made that everything has to be short, like content has to be so short, because great content you will watch. But it's got to be done well, But that would make me think, I didn't know Singapore had this history and this heritage. I've got to go, and I've got to go to Yakun Kaya Toast. That's a really dodgy picture of me filthy after doing a food tour in Shanghai. Everywhere I go on these food tours, which I love. Slightly more premium experience, but personalized, and hands-on, and it helps me take a skill back as an experience. And the picture below is, this is a great local kueh shop called One Kueh at a Time. So some of you know it. They make soon kueh, and it's really artisanal local kueh. And that's them with the founder of Airbnb. Because this experience is on the Airbnb app. How do I know this? Because I saw it on Instagram and I'm like, hey, when is your class? How can I come? And they said, oh, it's on the Airbnb app, you need to go. And I thought, but it made me download the app. Yeah. So it pushed me to do it because it was a money can't buy only through a certain channel experience. But that was so clever. And I thought, okay, this is great. And the last one is, I keep telling Lynette this, I keep sending her these random WhatsApp pictures. I love Glico Pocky and Glico Pretz. It's a Japanese biscuit brand. Every Singaporean knows those cheesy Glico Pocky and strawberry ads from the 70s. And everywhere I go, I try to look for Glico to bring back. That's a picture of me with Glico Pocky from Hong Kong in abalone flavor, and you can taste like the black vinegar hints in the Pocky, and
to bring the experience alive.
I brought some back from Shanghai yesterday.
So I have my Glico
yeah, we're handing out Glico
Glico girls to hand out some customized Glico taste to you.
So I stopped at the air. I came back from Shanghai
do
from work
share
last
around.
night, and in there you'll find Peking duck pocky, you'll find hairy crab pocky, you'll find mapo tofu pocky, lychee pocky, oolong tea pocky. And I think, why can't we have teh tarik pocky? Why can't we have laksa pocky, chicken rice, pretz? Because that's a tapao experience. There's a really great plate I like. You buy it on the Supermama store. It's like a melamine plate with a chicken rice recipe. And I think I'd buy that, but I can't find it at Changi. So how do I, I guess my point here is we talk a lot about technology, and not all of us can embrace tech. But there are great ways to go low tech and make the experience really quality for our tourists and our guests. So, yeah.
And Sunita,
What
inspired you
just to
after all
follow
this
that
Glico
on?
break?
I think we've talked a lot about the inspiration we get from content, from design, from technology, but there's this, my favorite four-letter word, and I really hope by the end of this session it'll be your favorite four-letter word, is data. Because as you have all of these amazing things to play with, you pull it all together with data. And when you think about how we've evolved as human beings, and we're starting to see how much time we spend on the internet, our attention spans, how we consume different types of media. One thing that we're starting to see is how people live. And people live in the moment. And again, going back to Chris's point about throwing out the definition of the millennial, it's all about building moments. So with that, what we're able to do is, with Singapore, find moments in Singapore.
This is the moment. This is the moment where we look at all of you eating the flavored Glico.
You should see yourselves from up here.
Someone wants to describe a little bit.
Can I just get a picture?
Yeah, all of you look really.
Can you all hold up your
Yeah.
pocky boxes?
Yeah, can we have a picture of you?
I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, this
Anybody
is
wants to comment on the
fantastic.
taste? I mean, what do you have? Peking duck or laksa? Is it laksa?
We need to have a laksa
Oh,
flavor.
we
that's
need
why.
to have a laksa flavor. So what is good? And you cannot just eat and then don't tell us, like I haven't even tasted it. Durian? Chili crab. No, I'm talking about the ones that you're eating now. Is it nice? Okay, I'm sure it's nice. So that was our inspiration, I think, about experiences, about customizing, and about, there's a lot of talent around us, there's a lot of ingredient around us that we can use. So why couldn't we do something as simple as this, right? So on that note, maybe we can move on to the next segment, which is really about innovation itself, right? So what is innovation to you, right? So who's next?
Next, tell us.
I think we have, is it your clip?
I don't know.
Once again,
Go
this
into
is
the
a
next
reality
slide, yeah.
show.
Trump.
Okay.
So, while you enjoy
Ranji.
Well,
For once, let's talk about something else other than food.
Okay, no, because
it's so hard for me to not talk about
See,
food.
you
Yeah.
are distracted. We haven't eaten lunch. We're watching you eating Biko, so we're totally distracted.
Well, we talked about innovation in tourism marketing, and I wanted to talk about this. We were chatting earlier as a group, and Rupan was saying, we moved away from your glorious, picturesque, typical tourism videos. And for me, I love this series of videos: the America first, Netherlands second, India second, Croatia third. And I loved it because it put power back at the hands of the consumer. It was totally tongue-in-cheek, which means as an audience globally, everyone's reached a level of maturity. We can laugh at ourselves. It doesn't need to be perfect. And it was such a fun way of sharing things about, the country. Like the video that had, America first, India second, said, India second, India's great. Why? We mentioned the Kama Sutra. I mean, things like that, which are just, you would never find a tourism campaign. And Rupan's going, we did. Okay. But things like that, which are the fun things, and with social media, you always say people want to connect with brands, you want to connect with people, and this gave every country a personality.
And I think Singapore is interesting because, you see, 10 years ago, if you looked at most destination marketing, it was like a wallpaper. Great beaches, a few waterfalls, beautifully shot videos. You take the logo of Malaysia, put in Australia, take Australia out, put in this. But what's unique about Singapore, and I know our taglines change, is none of that existed. It is difficult for me to go to a beach and take a picture without getting the little bit of old liner. So we weren't blessed with the waterfalls or the mountains or all of God's gift. Okay, and what we've created in the last 50 years has been within our control. And as now data, virtual reality, personalization, immersive experiences, and these are not words one day out there in the future. Okay, tomorrow my mother's going to pick up $200 pair of goggles, do exactly what she did 20 years ago, which is buy into a destination. There will be enough shopping data from whatever she does on the internet for her to personalize her Singapore and say, I buy my Singapore because I would like to do this in the morning, this in the afternoon, this in the evening. So there has to be a time where this 50 years of this unique thing, which is Destination Singapore, which by itself is unique, we'll have to hand it over to people. And other countries are doing this, okay? Can you imagine today if somebody came to saying, let's throw up a telephone number where anybody in the world can just call and we'll connect them to one of the Singaporeans to talk about Singapore, okay? Because Sweden did do that. And I'm just going to share with you Kola Swede, just because it takes a lot of courage to hand over your brand to the people that actually own it, okay? Can we please play the video? So they're handing it out, and therefore each one of us, as we think of destination marketing, will have to move ourselves to the level where we're confident of our Singapore to become the world Singapore. And then on the other hand, there are countries who don't even have anything, not even the stuff we have, and are still finding innovative ways to communicate. I mean, there's a city in Japan, which I'm sure I'll cock up when I actually try and pronounce it, called Onamichi, okay? And poor guys had nothing, not even waterfalls or any of the wonderful collages of the past, but not even a landmark which had 3 buildings and a sailboat, okay? And even these guys are actually using technology and enabler and getting tourists on board, okay? Can we please play the next video as well? All we have is cats. That's it. All we have as a town is cats. How do we get this to be the next destination marketing? And I just think we have 50 years of a uniquely Singapore without it being God's gift. And the next level, which is what this fund will help enable, will see us being featured the next time the Swedes talk about their destination marketing. Yeah.
So do we have a non-tourism inspiration?
So as we think about what inspires and you know, pushes innovation, if they had cats, we have Anita Sarawak. And when you think about, again, you know, exporting personalities and being quite brave and really flying the Singapore flag, she was, I think, a huge inspiration for a lot of us. And Ranji and I remember her well, so we always call her Singapore's Tina Turner. But what she has done, like, you know, we had a picture of her vinyl here, which I actually own, by the way. And then the evolution of her on Spotify, which is the next slide. And you can see her entire career from what she looked like when she was young to all the way on your right-hand side, which is what she looks like now while she's doing her gig in Vegas. So she's got her own show in Vegas. And again, it goes back to using what Singapore has, using what we're incredibly proud of as we build content for the world. And it's also really important to remember that we talk about millennials, we talk about personalization, which is incredibly important, and it's really to, like Rupen's point about, you know, his mom being sold a story or a destination. That personalization and that generation me, a lot of us believe Coke really nailed it on the head. Where all of a sudden you had a simple thing like a Coke can that you could put your name on. So if we take that personalization to the next level, how would you personalize a trip to Singapore? How would you make it completely yours? What was interesting yesterday is we sat with a new tech company, and they're looking at transportation. They're looking at capturing you when you're in a car, in a taxi, in a Grab, in an Uber. And the second you sit in there, and it's already beta tested, it's ready to roll out, and we're trying to integrate music into it. I sit in a taxi, it reads my face, and it says, "Hi, Sunita, you look tired."
And your husband doesn't know you are in this cab.
I don't know what's
There's
going on.
downfalls of
Ruben.
That was not
I
rehearsed.
don't know.
That was just weird.
Now, this kind of thing I can't control.
But it had like, it sort of pulled from everything in my entire social media life, and it's Dad's birthday tomorrow, don't forget to swing by this shop and pick him up something. And all of that stuff, and whether it is, you should really think about, that's a long weekend coming up. I didn't realize this Friday was a holiday until yesterday. There's a long weekend coming up, plan something. All of these things. This is the world we live in. The technology that we have at our fingertips, we could have so much fun with.
Okay, so we talk a lot about it, a lot of things today, like experiences, personalization, ingredients that we can use around us, customized glyco. So if we were to sum it out a little bit in terms of what are some of the key trends that's dominating the marketing scene today.
Okay.
Someone wants to give it a go first?
Chris, you want to go?
I think so much of these key trends that are growing, and not necessarily just emerging, but are growing, explain so much of the Singapore Tourism Board's marketing strategy. Because there's so much, if you really spend a lot of time reading and rereading that strategy, and I have
It's about 40 pages long.
faithfully
Actually,
done that, client,
Okay.
faithfully done that. It's really the best distillation of what are the opportunities, in terms of, these sort of throwaway, sometimes, too often, throwaway ideas like agility and all that sort of stuff. But, it is about the data, and that's why it's really important that we get this data hub. So there's a lot of people in this room that are sitting on the data that we need to pull together to make this data hub really beneficial to everyone who has a stake in selling Singapore. then we can begin the personalization, whether it ends up being on a can, or whether it can be a truly personalized, slightly weird history tour of Singapore, or whatever it is. You know, so I think there's so many. I think that's what's really genuinely exciting about the opportunity we've got now,
Right.
and the launch of Marketing Innovation Program, is because it is really quite literally down to us to make this happen. I think it's like a perfect storm, if you like. I wasn't planning on saying that, but I think it really is like a perfect storm opportunity for us, where we can begin to harness some of these opportunities and make it fly for us here.
No, I agree. One of the trends we're seeing in the marketing world is brand partnerships, and we're seeing a lot more of that happen. I was on a Singapore Airlines flight yesterday, and I love it. It's the 70th anniversary of Singapore Airlines. I can tell you this: I read all the books on it. I read all the publications, and there was a Singapore Airlines Moleskine, if you're Italian, Moleskine collaboration. Singapore Airlines thing, To Me collaboration. And things like that are a really nice way to say, right, let's not make the bag ourselves. Let's not make a book ourselves. Let's co-partner. If you're Lululemon, you could partner with Singapore National Day. What if I don't want to buy a Giordano t-shirt? What if I want a nice piece of something I can wear to the parade? You know, how about that? How about one kueh at a time partnering up with Super Mama and serving the kueh on really nice Singapore porcelain that I could eat, buy, and say, I really like it. Let me take it away. Or putting those plates on cruise ships, you know, and doing the collaboration that way. So we don't have to go at it alone. We can do it together. I won't talk about Glico Pocky anymore. I think that's done. But that's one of the big trends we're seeing.
Okay.
We've spoken about it. Look, individualized memories are going to be what drives people to this country or to any other country. And our ability to therefore personalize and use data, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, day after, it's happening now. Our ability, technology is also going to allow us to offer immersive experiences even before they land up into Singapore. We don't have to do it ourselves. As Ranji said, there are enough people who are doing it. We just need to find them and partner with them so that we do what we do best with them. And because we don't have the national God's gift and have done so far so well, I think it's just up to us to take it to the next level.
So actually that sums out very well our session today. So do you have any last word you want to say?
Well, I guess when it comes to last words, and I know, and I feel your pain as well, you probably get asked or told to disrupt. We need to disrupt. Nobody knows how to do that. Nobody really knows what that means. A lot of companies cannot disrupt because we all have to explain things to boards who just think we're crazy when we say we want to disrupt something. So no matter what you do, I think it's always important to remember that there's different levels of disruption. We talked a lot about just simple things, low tech. I love that, low tech.
Absolutely.
And another sort of concept around disruption is you don't have to do something that's new. You can take something that's old and find a new way of doing it. And that makes that journey and that ease a lot easier. So instead of just disruption, I think if you talk about cautious disruption, it makes it a lot easier to manage.
Cautious disruption. So we're in the session. My last words is really linked to the last slide. Oops, there's a few more slides.
Don't worry, we can keep going next.
But anyway, I can do my last word without a slide. It's simply, please send in your application. The closing date is like 14 July. You only have about 3 months to get this done. Okay, so let's open question to the floor. Does anyone has anything that you want to share? Any questions that you need to ask us about the Marketing Innovation Program? The difficult question I'll get Ting Li to answer. Is that it? Nothing? Was the Glico nice? Oh, yes, sure.
Synopsis Media. I head up a practice called Data Technology and Innovation, so this is very apt. I think it's a really exciting time. Data offers a huge amount of potential and opportunity, most of which none of us understand right now. And I think the data hub is such a massive opportunity for everybody. And again, we won't realize its potential till that data is in there. I was sort of admiring some of the exhibitions in the hall earlier, and I guess there's a concern sort of bubbling up inside me, which is how do you make sure that we don't lose the human touch as we strive for technology innovation and data-driven and personalization? So how do you make sure that the face of Singapore doesn't get lost, the culture, the people, and how do we ensure that people can still discover rather than just get told?
Actually, I really like that question, because I think you really have to remember what we mentioned just now. Actually, technology is a means to an end. I mean, that's not the centerpiece, actually. So why do we wanted to actually conduct these sessions and like marketing innovation program? I should be really innovative about, like, when you come in, that should be like some tech thing shining on you or whatever. But no, actually, we wanted to be very human about this, So I wanted the panel to share with you what Singapore means to them. And actually, if you think back what we were talking about, there's a lot of ingredients around us, and these ingredients are actually where we are familiar with, and there's a lot of talent around us that we could actually use. And simple ideas doesn't have to be absolutely high-tech to answer those questions. So I hope we retain that,
If we can go one slide back, I should put this together. So, I think if you build it, they will come. What I mean by that is thinking really about the product and the right experience. And to Rupert's point, we don't have natural resources, but we've got people, and Singaporeans are very passionate. We actually are. You just ask someone, like, where's the best chicken rice? And you get like 5 million opinions, And I think, thinking about that in the right way, I say this because I find meeting Singaporeans now, you see great local talent, great roles, very passionate, a lot of rejuvenating traditional heritage, and it's all led by people. There's a great traditional kaya maker that's remaking their kaya, repackaging it. Okay lah, Lynette's laughing, so all I talk to you about is food. But that's such a core part of being Singaporean.
Lynette, I think you need to feed Ranji after this.
I go on these food tours all around the world, and when people say how's Singapore, I say better than this, come and eat, But we have the ability to all be ambassadors and pick something you're passionate about. I have friends who are passionate about photography, about art, about dance, about theater, about music. So
what is going to happen with every technology change is it's going to make your experience uniquely yours at a human level. So it's actually increasing the depth of how do we not lose our human angle. It's actually making it more intense and better rather than actually alienating us. My Facebook feed, so I don't go through what all they do, the fake, the not fake, blah, 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 is my Facebook feed. It's mine. Right? And the way data and technology and personalization are meant to make Singapore for us is mine. And my Singapore is going to be different from yours, and that's what's going to make us even more attractive. So it's actually, my suggestion is it's actually going to make it more human the more we use technology as an enabler.
And so I just need to say this because I love data. And I think it really does enable us to understand human behavior even better. So what we did last year, I'm not sure whether anybody in the room saw it, but we had a big global campaign. And we used data and we used behavior in each city. So for example, I'm not going to go through all of the cities, but I wanted to talk about Singapore. So we looked at what was trending in Singapore, and we came up with 2 pieces of creative. One of them got approved to run, the other one didn't. But the 2 stories were, we looked at some of the most popular playlists. And at one point, Descendants of the Sun was off the charts in Singapore as Korean dramas, And so our outdoor and digital campaign was, to the 25,000 people who follow the playlist Descendants of the Sun, drama much? And it was just, it's also very, very localized. And then the other piece of content that didn't run was, if you remember, there was a member of parliament that was encouraging people to have more children and said that we needed a very small space to be able to do that. Because on the back of that, we saw thousands of playlists being created called Small Spaces. And then the second piece of content was for the 8,233 people who created a Small Spaces playlist. We hope you scored. But that wasn't allowed to run. But that's okay, because it was still a great piece of content, and it was really telling about who we are and what we're passionate about.
I think to try and address Joe's question there, I think there probably could be a huge temptation for anyone and everyone to think, well, this is the latest gizmo, this is the latest user interface, this is the latest piece of tech. Let's try and fiddle with it, or let's try and execute it and use it. And I think that's and there's a sort of potential downside there. I think there's two things I would say to that. One is, if you think about what we're in, which is the destination marketing tourism thing, it is essentially, we're selling experiences. We're not really selling products. Products augment that experience. The service is part of that experience. But first and foremost, when people go on holiday or they go on a trip, they are consuming an experience. And I think it's impossible to imagine a world where humans don't play a fundamental part in delivering that experience. That might be augmented by some of the tech. And I think my second, if I may, Jack, my second point is that I don't think we should necessarily think of marketing innovation as something that's front of house. It's not necessarily something that is in the face of a visitor, so that like Minority Report arriving in Changi Airport and being like hounded by screens and retargeted, the sort of uncanny valley of personalization, yeah. But I think what we're going to be looking for in MIP is how is the data being used in an innovative way? What insights does the data? So it's not just about the shop front; it's also about the back office.
Yep, no, that's great.
So if you take a look at the criteria of the marketing innovation, I'll come to you quickly later, like one more second. Part of it is really also a clever use of data. It doesn't have to be just technology, right? It's really about interesting ideas that we're looking after. Yes.
Sorry, just one statement and one question. The statement is, I think we focus a lot about millennials, and they actually don't give a shit about that label. I'm not millennial, I'm Gen X. But I think it'd be quite lovely for once, if we want to talk about millennials, this panel should have millennials talking about the future. I think that's one comment. I think that is always missing. Second is, I think I love all your innovative idea. It just shows that marketing messaging is changing. People want real messages rather than using big words. So a lot of tourism owners, be whether it's travel agents or whatever, suppliers and so forth, are SMEs, and they have very traditional mindsets. So how would you convince them to shift to the new way of marketing?
I used my first job out of school. I spent 3 years working for the Tonglok Group, SME, local. I was very blessed to have a very, very progressive CEO, Andrew Chu. I would suggest all the SMEs, this is just putting it out there, everyone get together, maybe do a golfing afternoon, get all your bosses in a room, and maybe change the minds from the top. Because so many times the marketers get it, the CMOs get it, but it's like, I used to work for another SME in the car business, and I used to get called into the room and say, Ranji, you saw the Business Times? Yes. So nice, the car? Yes. Where's our ad on Yahoo? Are they cheating us? No, it's not. It's there. And it was just so hard to change the mindset. So I think I would say there should be a CEO education camp, get everyone together, and like use peer pressure. Use peer pressure and say, hey, you mean you're not using this? Oh, okay, can't help you there. But maybe get the progressive leaders. Andrew is still really progressive to this day. Back in the day, 2000, In the year 2000, Ogilvy PR was our PR agency. To be a group of Chinese restaurants and a PR agency was beyond progressive. You know, and props to him. So having worked with SME, I think the change, unfortunately, needs to come from the top. So work on your CEOs and MDs.
I think that's cool. But I also think if we're selling whatever it is we're selling to other normal people, we need to know what that normal person wants, okay, and what they're interested in and what they're not interested in order for us to build a business with customers, travelers, guests, you know, consumers, whatever. And I think any organization that doesn't have their finger on the pulse of their target audience is courting a problem. And I think if there are CEOs, and you know, irrespective of whether they're SME or MNC, and they haven't got their eye on where their source of business is coming from, then they've got a fundamental problem. I accept your point about why are people on the panel that aren't millennial talking about millennial. Yeah, but our point, publicists, right, and what we this is at the risk of repeating myself, is that more and more people that are not defined as millennial in terms of their age want what the millennial expectations are. They want a quick and easy and seamless, intuitive experience. And it's just tough if CEOs don't understand that, or probably do understand it, but are just resistant to that change. But whatever, what we do in our organization, we are, as an agency, fundamentally a service business. You know, we're in the service industry, if you like. And if we don't understand what you're thinking and what you want and, you know, what is it you need, then we're out of business. And if we are in the tourism industry and it's essentially a human experience, you need to know what your audience wants.
Sorry, I just want to... You see, the intrinsic nature of most businesses won't change for the future. So there will be a few things that your CEOs know that will still be relevant. There may be contemporary ways to execute it, but the intrinsic nature of what they've learned through the hard way may not change, will not change for the future. So I think it is not just, SMEs, CEOs, let's just get them into a place and peer pressure. I think also the respect of what they've learned the hard way. If you break down any company, even born in the new technology era, it's actually following a principle that my dad and your dad and granddad were doing. They've just used technology to enable it better. And I think a lot of rules won't change. How you get them through to people, how they experience it, how they personalize it is what is the next big thrust.
And if they don't like it, if they don't like any of these kind of shiny, crazy ideas, you know, that are proposed and advocated by technologists, then they just simply reject them. You know, the customer decides. At the end of the day, the customer decides whether they want it, yes or no. You know, I mean, Spotify is a growing business, and it's because it serves a need. You know, and that's because yes, people don't want to own it. They're quite happy streaming it, but they want to choose from whatever music is available. They want to access a massive catalog. So these businesses, the ones that endure, the new businesses and the more established businesses that endure, do so because they understand what their customers want, and the customers are at liberty to reject some of these crazy innovations that sometimes we're all present. We see all kinds of people walk in the agency with all kinds of crazy gadgets and gizmos that they think are going to impact and revolutionize the world of advertising. A tiny % of those will live beyond 3 years. You know.
Okay, great. Well, Darren is going crazy there, signaling to me that time's up. Like, is there any last burning question that anybody want to ask? No. If not, can we put our hands together for our panelists today? And thank you, all of you, for joining us. I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you enjoy the Glico. And have a great afternoon and a long weekend.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.